It's actually a real delight to be here, and I'm sure that you're equally feeling quite blessed to be the audience participating, as you'll have the opportunity to wander around and to see some of the amazing work that are done. Congratulations. It has been wonderful to be able to look and to see all the things and the great ideas and concepts that are coming to reality now.
This afternoon is all about celebrating. It's about celebrating the way that our Year 8 have been using their gifts and exploring the unique way in which God has made them. And we're here to learn this afternoon about the journey they've been on as they've undertaken their passion project. You'll see there's lots of different projects around here, from computing to DT projects to books. It's really exciting.
It's a difficult process. It's not something that is actually you just go and do. It's something you spend a lot of time thinking and planning and putting all those details together. So I wanted to say a big congratulations to both of the classes for the amazing work that you've pulled together, because we know how long and how hard you have worked to be able to produce such awesome things.
For my passion project, I covered Ed Sheeran songs. I did Ed Sheeran because growing up I always loved listening to his music, and I just thought his songs were fun to listen to and sing. First I had to learn and practice all the songs and get them right. I used a microphone to record all the songs. I edited it using Logic, and I learnt lots of new effects that goes into editing. My favourite part was being able to do something that I enjoy, which is singing, and also learn lots of new things, like all the different technologies and effects that goes into recording music. The hardest thing was I was very new to all the, I didn't have much experience in all the technology and editing skills, so it took me a while to get the hang of all the editing and effects and things that go into recording music. I learned all these things by my mentor. She helped me with everything and she knew lots about it, and so I learnt lots from her. One piece of advice for someone who wants to do singing or recording would be to take time and relax and just really try your best.
For my passion project, I designed, planned and created a model of a Korean traditional house called Hanok. I chose this project because I really like architecture, and I thought that it would be nice to combine my culture and architecture into making this project. A difficult part of making my project was having to cut out everything individually and measuring them. One thing I loved about my project was being able to finish it on time. A piece of advice I would give to people doing passion project would be time management. You have to do everything on time and make sure you finish it on time.
For my passion project, I built an audio-visual setup that would be able to work for my church so that they could run their services and stream them. I love doing this project because it was something that I'm passionate about and something that I could give to someone as a gift and they'll be able to use for pretty much forever. Some things I had to consider doing the project were things like budget, the amount of time I had to do it because they needed it quite soon, and negotiating with them was also a bit of a trek. Doing a passion project taught me how to manage my time, how to stay organised and on track, how to negotiate with others, how to stick to budgets. My passion project will help me in the future because it gives me a way to work with others. It'll help me because it'll mean that I'll know how to organise myself for HSC major works and things like that. Paperwork as well.
For my passion project, I created an art series called The Moon and Back using charcoal and gold foil. My passion project was difficult because I had to use a lot of gold foil, and applicating that was really difficult because you had to do it with a lot of precision and it took a lot of time. What I loved about my passion project was being able to work on something continuously over an amount of time and to feel like you've worked towards something that's a big end product. Passion project will help me in the future because I'm going to do art for the HSC, and it will help me with my major work then, and it taught me all these different techniques about composition and about using charcoal. Advice I'd give to other students doing a passion project would be really work on time management. Make sure you allocate time each week to do your passion project, and make sure that you have time if you end up stuffing it up so that you can do it again.
For my passion project, I crocheted a blanket and made some matching pillowcases to go with it. This was extremely complicated because I didn't know the stitch that I was doing, initially, and so I had to learn that, and it took heaps of time. One thing I loved about my passion project was once I got the hang of it, it was pretty fun and I got to watch a lot of movies while doing it. Some skills I'm going to take into the future are time management and also making blankets. I can keep on doing this. What I loved about my passion project was it was something that I liked doing, and so I was able to do it continuously while enjoying it, and now I have something that I can keep and continue to use.
For my passion project, I decided to spray paint a design on my surfboard. I chose this because I really enjoyed surfing and I always wanted to create or design my surfboard. One difficult thing about my project was once I had finished spray painting overnight, the spray paint had frozen and cracked. Advice I would give to students doing passion project would be to always start early because you don't know what can happen throughout your project.
For my passion project, I made a soccer goal out of PVC pipes. I chose this because I really love soccer and I wanted to make it, so I decided to make a soccer goal. One thing I loved about my project was learning how to tie different knots and do the netting, so that was pretty cool. Advice I'd give to students in the future would be manage your time well, because I didn't do stuff at the start, so I had to do more near the end and it was a lot more stress and stuff, so manage your time well.
For my passion project, I created a summer dress. I chose this because I love textiles and clothes. What I learnt from my passion project was to learn how to use a sewing machine correctly and how to create a dress. Advice I would give to passion project students would be to be organised and to just keep everything in check.
For my passion project, I built a gaming computer. Some things I had to consider were keeping in budget, doing good cable management and learning new skills with the computer. My specs of my computer is an Intel i7-10700K, a 2080 Ti graphics card, 1 terabyte of storage, 32 gigs of RAM. The reason I love computers is because I've always liked technology and it's fun to play with. What I'm looking forward to most is playing games with friends from South Africa and friends here. In the future I will benefit from this project because I'm learning how to use a PC and everything that it can do and learning more about the components as well.
For my passion project, I decided to create activewear. I chose to do this because I enjoy exercising and designing things. What I loved about my passion project was choosing exactly what I wanted to do. One difficult time when I was making my passion project was when the fabric I used was becoming difficult because it's really stretchy. So I had to slow down and just go back a bit and redo it, but it all ended up well. One thing I told myself was that I could get through this, and I just got help from my mentor and she really helped me along this difficult part. Down the track I could use these skills because I'm really interested in design and textiles, so maybe my future career.
For my passion project, I created and painted a basketball backboard. I chose to do this because I really enjoy playing basketball and I wanted to create one so that I could practice shooting more hoops. It's just like a city at night. I didn't know what city it was. I kind of just searched up a city and I was like, oh yeah, that looks really cool. So I did a few sketches in a book and I just kind of drew it on. What I love about the design is the outcome, how it kind of comes together with the scoreboard at the bottom and the coming up to be a city. A really hard time was actually knuckling down and doing all the windows. It was just ruler after ruler just going down and across. It just took a really long time. Down the track my project will help me because just playing against friends and family, just having fun, just beating them in a sport. Advice I give to people, other people doing passion projects is time it out and do something that you enjoy and have fun with.
For my passion project, I built a gaming PC. I chose this because I developed an interest in technology a few months ago and I wanted to pursue it further. What I loved about my project was just learning new things and just planning it out and looking forward to building it. The most difficult time in my project was when we came across a few hurdles building the PC itself, and we had to fix those and stuff with the software and stuff. I overcame this problem by just taking it all out, looking at it, seeing what we could do and redoing it. In the future, my passion project will help me because it'll open up a new career option for me and I could just benefit from that.
For my passion project, I designed and sewed a Hamilton-inspired military jacket. I love musicals and history, so something that combined them fascinated me, and I love how fun they are. I guess the lessons that we can learn from the past, and I guess it's a different way of living, so I love reading up about alternate things, so I guess history a different way that life was. One thing that was great about this project was it was something that I really loved, so I had an excuse to create something I wanted to. I broke my thumb and my wrist doing this. Well, not doing the project, but at one time, so I had 6-7 weeks where I couldn't do anything, so that put a lot of stress on me when I had it out. I got over that by, I guess, working really hard, and I did a lot of work before, as I'm not very good at planning, so I knew that, so I did a lot of work within the first couple of weeks, so that really helped. Something I love about my project, I guess, is that it turned out because there were no patterns to creating this. It's not something I guess anyone's done aside from the musical, so I guess that something I loved was that I managed to make it what it's supposed to look like. When I first showed it to people, it was my sisters who hadn't actually seen Hamilton at the time, so they were really confused as to what I'd made, but they both put it on and they knew all the songs and they started singing it, and it was kind of cool. It showed me that I can do more than I think, because I guess sometimes I have an idea of what I want to do and then I downscale it so it's more realistic, but I think now I'm gonna do less downscaling. When I look back on this project in years to come, I'm going to be proud of what I did and remember that I can do more than I think to give stuff a go.
For my passion project, I built and designed a high-powered air-pressured water rocket. I love making things from scratch and using materials that I ordinarily wouldn't use. And for the rocket, I had to build a lot of the pieces I used. And so just designing something that was cool and worked was very fun. The process involved in making this water rocket was building 2 prototypes after designing both of them, several trips to Bunnings, and a continuous amount of failure. When I first set it off and it worked, it didn't go very far. We used a smaller bottle, so it wasn't intended to go very far, but it was actually still leaking at the seal. So while I was happy it worked, I was still pretty disappointed that I hadn't properly fixed it. When I first saw the rocket go into the sky, I was very excited. My first thought was, I got wet by a water rocket, and then I realized I was thinking of it as a water rocket and not just a blown up bottle, so that was awesome. This project has changed the way I see myself because I was able to actually complete it. I do a lot of things where I get there halfway and then I decide that's fine. But I completed it, it works very well, and I'm going to use it a lot in future, so I'm going to be able to tackle harder projects now. Some of the skills I learnt were how to use a circular saw, how to find the right timber, how to identify different types of hardwoods, how to read PSI gauges more carefully, how to measure where leaks were, and identifying different areas where I needed to change the structure of the rocket launcher to make it go higher. When I do major works in Year 12, I will probably be doing works with wood in designing things. I hope to become an engineer in the future, and I think that this project will really help me with that.
For my passion project, I made and designed a surfboard. I made and designed a surfboard because I thought it'd be challenging, and I wanted to learn how to use some tools I've never used before. Some of the skills I learnt were some spray painting techniques and some sanding techniques that my dad taught me. I'm looking forward to seeing how fast it can get up to and if I'm able to do tricks and turns on it. First step was like shaping the board to get like the point good and the other end, and like I had to even up the sides, and then I had to fiberglass it and get it like surfable. And then I designed it with some spray paint and got some patterns on it, and you can sort of feel some textures on it as well. I like how I made it, and like so people can come over and like if we go surfing, I can say I made this, like it's like I can be proud of something that I did. Now I really understand like what goes into making a surfboard, and for one point it is a bit cheaper. If I just bought a surfboard and rode it, like it wouldn't feel like such an achievement, but this, like, I made it.
So for my passion project, I customised my own keyboard and also customised my friend's keyboard. So I had to get my friend's keyboard first. I had to buy the keycaps, and then I had to like disassemble it, and I ended up hydro dipping it too. And then for mine, I was gonna just buy parts and then put it together, but all of the parts were out of stock, so I had to buy an actual keyboard and then take it apart and do the same steps basically. So for my friend's keyboard, he didn't want any different switches. So switches are like these things up here. So for mine, it started with different switches than what I wanted, so I had to desolder them. It was shorter than I expected actually. Like the desoldering was like an hour and a half or so, and the soldering only took like 20 minutes. So that was good, but it didn't take like 3 hours each. Just knowing that like it's a good keyboard that I like and I can make it, and it's like new skills that I learned that I wouldn't have learnt before.
For my passion project, I made a cereal commercial. I had to plan the shots, I had to film the shots, and I also had to edit all of them. So I had to get all my footage and cut them, I had to color grade them, and I had to put effects and transitions to make it smoother. One thing I took from my project was the experience of filming and editing. Down the track, doing this passion project will help me in the future if I want to take this path of filming.
For my passion project, I made this cake and also a video tutorial about making this cake. Some of the difficult things about this project was transporting, because if I messed up like anything, like I dropped it or I accidentally touched it, then I would ruin like all my effort for this project. I was making a really big batch of the icing, but I accidentally messed up something, so I had to redo all the icing. I felt really like scared because like it's my project and I didn't really want to like ruin it, so I had to like go to the shops to get like more cream and more like ingredients to remake all the things. I say to myself that this is my passion, so I should try my best to do everything to make it perfect. When I first like made this tiered cake, I was like really amazed by what I've done, and my parents were really proud as well. Going forward, I could use these skills by maybe like being a professional cake baker in the future. Other skills I've learnt are do not leave things to the last minute, because it would be really hard for you to fix everything. Year 7s, when you do your passion project next year, I would recommend you try your best, because this is what you like to do and it's your passion, so just enjoy every bit of it.
For my passion project, I made a film. It was just of me filming what I do for fun and what my other passions are, but my overall passion is videography and editing. And the reason I chose the music that I did in the film is because it sets the mood. Well, with my camera, you gotta get the settings right, and you gotta like, obviously angles, that's kind of basic, and the way, like where you want your subject to be. Other thing that helps me is I think ahead on what I'd want in my editing process. I maybe even planning music ahead, so I know, oh, okay, this will look right with this, and yeah, it's confusing, but in the end it works. Well, I did choose photography and digital media as my subjects for next year. It's something I am passionate about and it's very fun. Yeah, it could be an idea for something to do in the future, but I'm not quite sure yet. Making a film for my passion project helped because with each film you make, you get more practice, and the more practice you get, the better you get. So it helped me learn from mistakes and improve my skills.
For my passion project, I created a surfing tutorial for beginners to learn to surf. I had to plan out what I was going to film and then film it at the beach and edit. My sister was filming it and my mum, but I was in the tutorial, yeah. I've taught my brother a little bit how to surf, but I haven't gone into full depth. I definitely think it could give them a lot of tips and like tricks, like help them surf, but they might need a tiny bit more help. And when I was editing all my clips, I realised I didn't have enough footage of me on the board, so I just had to persevere and find something else to do with it. So I fixed my problem by, I put some of the clips in twice, but I did it as a different like perspective and talking about something different, so it
helped, yeah. If I had advice to give to someone doing a passion project, I would tell them to manage their time because it is hard if you leave it to the last minute.
So I made a hangboard and it's like a grip trainer for rock climbing. I've been rock climbing for 2 or 3 years now. Well, I've looked into other hangboard designs and I've looked at what the professionals use. So I've implemented their design, so slopes and smaller grips. I have 6mm grips and they're quite small. Well, for the deeper grips, I could only drill half a centimetre at a time. So the ones that were 2.5 centimetres took quite a while. So I was halfway through drilling the deeper holes, and since I could only drill half a millimetre at a time, it took quite a while. And then the batteries were left out in the rain, and then I had to get new ones. My favourite part was using the circular saw to make the ingot slope. I'm going to hang it on the door frame of my room. My one piece sort of advice would be to make a plan and stick to it, and also choose something that you enjoy, otherwise you might not be motivated to do it.
For my passion project, I made a skateboard. I made a skateboard because I like skating and I thought it'd be a challenge. The most challenging part was putting the grip tape on and the trucks. Because like the grip tape, it's like really sticky, so putting it on, and if you get it in the wrong spot, then you have to take it off and try like get it perfect. My favourite part was probably painting it. I'll be using this board when I hang out with my friends and when I skateboard by myself. I'll probably learn some tricks on this board. If I had one piece of advice to give, I would say stay on top of everything and don't leave it to the last minute.
For my passion project, I made a seahorse sculpture because I just like to use clay and I like to design things. Yeah. My inspiration is choosing the seahorse because it's just like an interesting animal and I haven't seen many sculptures of a seahorse before. The hardest part of this was making it hollow because it needed to be able to cook in the kiln, and if it wasn't hollow then it wouldn't be able to cook, and making it hollow was hard as it kind of deflated a little bit, so I needed to remake it as well. My favourite part of making this was painting it. In the future, the skills I learned will help me to create more sculptures if I decide to do that. My next sculpture would probably be a dog or a cat. One piece of advice to give would be to just relax and take it nice and easy.
For my passion project, I created activewear. I made it because I'm passionate for being active and I like clothes. I thrifted my top and this one has my logo, I created a logo. The hardest part was my material because it was really stretchy. The material I chose was Lycra. My one piece of advice for my passion project would be not leaving it to last minute. The skills I learned for the future is being able to understand a pattern and just sewing.
For my passion project, I created a mosaic artwork showing the beach. Inspiration was from my mentor's artworks which she's done in the past. My favourite part was probably picking out colours and putting it all together to make what I wanted. The process was probably first sketching the design and what I wanted, and then I had to cut some of the tiles to fit in how I wanted it to, and then glued them on and grouted over at the end. The most challenging part was probably time management and doing a mosaic artwork, as I've never done one before. One piece of advice for doing passion project would be to manage your time well and be organised, and don't leave your project to the last minute.
For my passion project, I made a remote control boat. So it has a brushless motor, the propeller's at the back with the rudder at the side. It's called an outrigger boat because it has these rigs out to the side, and it's also water cooled. One thing I learnt was how to make the electronics for the boat and how to connect them. The most challenging thing was troubleshooting because one of my parts didn't work and I had to figure out which part that was and how it didn't work. But after that it was a bit smoother. My favourite part was seeing the boat run. That was really good, seeing it all work. Another one of my favourite parts was using all the new power tools that I learnt how to use to make the hull. One piece of advice for Year 7s would be to give yourself extra days because everything that you work on will be longer than you think it will take.
For my passion project, I cut and dyed wigs.
For a while now, I've been wanting to be a hairdresser. I've always done my own hair and I started cutting my brother's hair, and so I thought it'd be fun to play around with wigs. My favourite part was dyeing the wigs because it's fun to play with the colour. I wouldn't say anything about the actual wigs was challenging, but during the week that it was due, I ended up in the ICU. So that was definitely the hardest part. I thought like, oh, it's wig dyeing, it's easy, it's not going to take that long, but it ended up taking a lot longer than I thought it would. It never turns out how you expect it will. Like you hear other people's stories of how like they had all these troubles and you're like, oh, that won't happen to me, but plan ahead because stuff might happen.
For my passion project, I built a PC that is both for gaming and for schoolwork. It has a very powerful CPU and a mid-range GPU, which it's rocking a Ryzen 3700X, which is quite a high-end CPU, but a mid-range GTX 1650 Super GPU. So, and it's rocking a M80 case, which is from Corsair. It's the 280X. I think it's fairly small and it's compact, but it still does a lot of functions and a lot of space for hard drives and SSDs. They all suited my budget. My budget was 2.5K, and it was hard to actually keep everything in budget because I have to worry about the monitor, I have to worry about my other keyboard and mouses, which is all included in my budget. The most challenging part was cable managing. Plugging in the components was actually not that hard as I expected, but for the cables, every part of the PC, you actually need a cable to power it and send data to it. So routing the cables all around the case was a bit challenging because it was my first time building it. At the back of the PC, it was all wires, and the wires was everywhere, and I couldn't close the back panel. But my dad helped me, and he gave me some Velcro straps, and I strapped all of them together, and at last the cables were very clean and they were all tidy, and I could shut the back panel back on and the PC was done. For your passion project, my advice is that choose something that you like the most and you would like to pay the effort into building it. And for building a PC, I'd advise you buying a case that is easily for cable managing, because some cases they have very small rooms for you to cable manage, so your PC may not look that good if you can't cable manage. And if you're a beginner to PCs, I would recommend you not buying cases that are small, and I recommend you buying a mid-tower case.
For my passion project, I wrote and edited a short story. My story is about a girl whose life has been flipped upside down and has been turned side to side with different appalling events that have happened to her. She then has to find her way through to work. Probably time management, because you think that it's easy and you think that you'll get it done really quickly because you have a good sense of what you're doing, but then by the time you actually get started, it takes way longer than you expect. My favourite part about writing this was probably being able to be creative and not having to keep all my ideas in a simple box or rubric. A piece of advice I would give is make sure you keep everything within a time, you have everything planned out per se, not necessarily your story, because sometimes it's easier for different people to write without a plan, but just figure out what's best for you when trying to write.
For my passion project, I played a song in the key of C major, so that as a piece for people to enjoy too, for the public or anyone. I recorded the song. I set up a phone on a stand, and I just let the piano accompaniment play, and I played along. The hardest part was recording again and again, because there are many fails in this process. I learned that it's just that one part that I have to keep practicing again and again. The most satisfying part was knowing the final recording that I actually played well and I can use it. I learned that if you fail one recording, you just have to pull through it and not give up. If I could do one thing differently is definitely a better microphone. I would love to record more songs in the future.
For my passion project, I made a cajon with a tongue drum built into the side of it. So a normal cajon wouldn't have the tongue drum built inside of it. So this mini prototype I made, as you can see, it doesn't have the tongue drum bit. So if you hit the front, it makes a drum noise, and if you hit this bit here, get my stick, it kind of makes like a xylophone-y noise. I've always wanted a cajon because I'm a drummer. I've seen different cajons every now and then, like at church and at school. I wanted to make my own one, but I wanted to add a little something to it, like make it my own, so I added a tongue drum into it. The challenging part of it was to tune these tongues. It took ages and it was very tedious. And if you over-tuned it, then you'd have to fix it again, and it was like super annoying. So you take off the front of it, then you get a drill bit, and you just drill at the tip of the tongue to make it lower, and at the base of the tongue to make it higher. The best part about making this was learning how to use all of the tools and getting to know my mentor a bit more, because I hadn't really spent much time with him, so making the cajon and the tongue drum was really good to build our friendship. My one piece of advice would be that you start early. You don't wait until the very end, and you want to get it done super quickly, so you have time to do the writing part of your assignment.
For my passion project, I wrote a few songs. I burned them onto a CD and I exported them to Apple Music so I can listen to them whenever I want to. I played the backing track on my piano at home. I used GarageBand to layer the tracks, and I sung them with my microphone. My favorite part of it was probably like mixing all the strings for one of my pieces. It was very fun to kind of layer it all together and make sure it sounded great, like as layers together, yeah. Yeah, I've had a love for music since I can remember. I can't really remember when I started enjoying it, but I've been playing piano since I was 5. My favorite instrument is piano. It's really fun to play. The hardest part of this was probably thinking of new lyrics and melodies to kind of create the songs. Like I could kind of think about how to put it together, but I couldn't think of each individual part very easily. For me, it's easier to write the music first and then think of a topic you want to sing on and then kind of build lyrics around that. It probably sounds better if they rhyme, but yeah, I think it's better to put the music first, but that's my opinion.
So for my passion project, I decided to draw 4 different portraits of 4 different styles characters using 4 different mediums. That is all 3 mediums. So that is coloured marker pen, this one is graphite pencil, this one is coloured pencil. I've loved styles like lots of my life, so I enjoy drawing portraits. That's one of my skills. I'm really keen to draw these portraits in the future because I want to show people my developing skills and I want to see how good I can get. I struggled with this one the most because it was really hard to get the head shape right. I had lots of different tries, and even though that's my favourite type of medium, I struggled with it the most. The most fun part was probably doing this one, the Boba Fett one, because you use all 3 of mediums. Advice I can give to the Year 8s in the future would be do a lot of practice beforehand, and if you need help, ask for help from your mentor and don't give up.
For my passion project, I built a bass guitar. My family has always been a musical family, and one music lesson at school I got given a bass guitar to play and I really enjoyed playing it, and I came home wanting to buy one. So Dad thought I could build one for my passion project instead. I really enjoyed spray painting it because it's kind of satisfying just pressing a button. My one piece of advice would be have fun with it, don't rush it.
For my passion project, I created a digital artwork using a program called Critter.
So first I did a sketch on paper to find out what image that I'd like to put on the computer, and then I scanned it into a USB and put it onto the program, and then I coloured it in and refined it and outlined it. My favourite part was colouring it in because I could really see it all come together into one refined picture. My inspiration came from a lot of things that I was passionate about, so there are parts of it that came from my environmental awareness and also from my Christian faith. The most challenging part for me was finding one idea that I wanted to stick to because there were a lot that I wanted to do, and just choosing one was really hard. Another thing was when I first got introduced to digital art, there were so many different tools that I wasn't used to, so I had to get used to all the tools and know how to use them. One skill that I learnt was how to frame a canvas because I did the wood around it by myself, and another thing that I learnt was how to actually create a digital artwork since this is my first time. One piece of advice that I'd give to a person who wanted to start digital art would be to do your research and find a program that would suit you, because there are a lot of digital artwork programs out there, but Krita was one that suited me because it wasn't too overwhelming with all the tools.
For my passion project I made an electric V-Bass. Well, first I bought a design. I cut that design out onto some softer wood. We bought all the body, the neck and the fretboard. We made templates for all of them. We first just put the template on top of it. Then we got something called a router, which is just something that spins really fast in a circular motion, and you just route it out to the design. We soldered all the pots, which just control the tone and the volume, and also the output jack, so you can also plug it into an amp. There's something called fret buzz. When you hold down on the fret and you strum the string, there was minimal fret buzz, which I'm really happy with, because we didn't necessarily have all the tools that we needed for this, because we couldn't necessarily find them all, because a lot of them are just mainly over in America, where a lot of manufacturing goes on. I haven't been playing bass for too long, because I just wanted to broaden my horizon on how many instruments I play. I play drums, tenor sax, and piano. My one piece of advice would be just time management and make sure you have everything prepared.
For my passion project, I sewed a dress. I merged 3 patterns together and then to create my ideal dress, and then it has an open back and it's got a zip down the back and also a tie. I just thought it was kind of practical and it's kind of flowy, and then also a zip is quite easy to use and stuff when you're wearing a dress. Obviously it's quite practical, so yeah. I really enjoyed the whole process of making my dress and the design and the sewing, and then obviously when it's done, because you're really proud of what you've achieved. I learned how to attach an invisible zipper to the back of dresses, or I guess wherever you want to do it, and yeah, how to do that, because I didn't know how to do that before. One challenge was the invisible zipper, because I didn't overlock it before I attached it, so I had to unpick it and do it again. If I could give one piece of advice, I would say choose something you really enjoy, because you're going to be doing it for a long time. So choose something you enjoy a lot, yeah.
For my passion project, I made an 18th century Rococo gown from scratch.
I built a blanket box with a removable bench cushion that goes on top.
I built a fully functioning PC.
I wrote a short story about depression and grief, raising awareness for suicide.
I made a painting of a red-tailed black cockatoo with a blue hint.
I created an oil painting of an ocean wave.
Doing a passion project is different from other schoolwork because you really get the freedom to decide what you want to do.
And you have to sort it out yourself, so there's a lot more independence involved.
And it's also really interesting to see what everyone else creates, because everyone does something completely different.
The best thing about doing my passion project was honestly just the feeling of knowing as I was writing this I was helping people. My story is predominantly about hope, and so my goal is for this to reach all people that are struggling with depression.
So having my granddad as my mentor was really fun because he has workshops underneath his house. I don't think I would have been able to do my project without him. The hardest thing about my passion project was trying to get everything done on time. I had to leave a lot of time in between sittings to let it fully dry.
Putting the CPU cooler in, because the screws on the back didn't fit in properly.
Probably having to sew all the layers together, so it was really heavy and I was scared the bodice wouldn't hold up all the layers. At the very beginning, my mentor told me it was way too ambitious and that I wouldn't be able to complete it, so I was really scared for myself.
So because depression and suicide and grief, they're all such real and raw topics, I did have to be very careful with how I worded things, and that took a lot of time.
At the very end of the build, we tried to power it on and my PC just like went on for like 5 seconds and it just turned off. I was like, oh, why is this happening?
So the first and second layers of my box, they joined together totally fine. But then the second and third layer, it just would not fit together.
And I was just writing the end of the story, and I just hit a complete roadblock, a complete blank. No idea what to do, no idea what to write next.
I just felt like I want to give up. I just don't really want to do this anymore. It's too hard.
I told myself I was a failure, that I wasn't gonna do it. And then my mum she was like, you just gotta get back up and you can do it.
So basically my mentor told me that like we should just check all the cables and make sure they're all plugged in. So we went one by one through all the cables and then finally we found the cable that wasn't like connected properly and clicked the button and finally it turned on.
I learned a lot doing this project. Because it took me so long, my painting skills naturally improved, so this will really help me with future works that I do.
I'd never really done any sort of sewing project before. I was able to learn how to properly use the right sewing techniques.
Or how to use a drop saw, how to use a screwdriver, how to use wood glue.
Developing characters and how to outline a story and how to edit a book properly. And
all the different types of strokes and backgrounds and what kind of image you want to display.
But I also learned a lot about time management and how to structure a big project like this.
And being able to plan and being able to stick with your plan.
I think like doing the passion project has definitely like built up my resilience a lot.
It's taught me to keep persevering no matter how big the problem may seem.
You shouldn't give up and you should persist, because in the end you will get there.
And I think that when you make a mistake, it's because you've done something differently, and so the mistake might turn out well and you can continue to do things differently.
When I finished my passion project, I felt so relieved, and I was really happy with myself because I thought it looked so beautiful and detailed, and I was just so amazed at myself as well, just that I completed that when I've never really painted very seriously before, and I was just like, wow, I actually did that.
Oh, I felt so relieved. At the beginning, I wasn't even sure I'd be able to finish it, and I was like, wow, I did that myself.
So like I just shouted like to my whole family, come and see this, and it was all like the PC was all lit up and it was all working and everything just was finally clicking into place and just like pure joy.
So I went to pick up the book from Officeworks and the cover was on and everything was finished and it was such a good feeling.
I think the moment when the bench cushion had finished drying and I put it on top of my box and it looked really good, I was like, wow, I actually built that. And then all my family and my parents were there and they were telling me how proud they were of me. And then my younger sister came in and she was like, you built that yourself.
My art teacher, she was really, really impressed, and because she has a lot of experience with art, her opinion like really mattered to me. And so when she said, wow, Jess, that's really good, I was just really proud of myself.
My mum had some friends over and then she was like, oh, my daughter did this, and she just was showing it off and they were like, you're only in year 8 though.
Like all of my friends and family were like, didn't know how I even did it, like, because it's such a like complex build to do, like build a computer.
My mum took a picture and sent it to all her friends and family and they were just all like, oh my gosh, Jessie, that's so amazing.
Doing this project by myself made me feel really more confident in what I can do.
I don't need others to like guide me through everything. It's such a good feeling because like it's like growing up.
Well, you learn something about yourself as well, like what extent can you really go to.
And you really learn how strong you are and how much you're capable of.
I felt really good about myself and that I could do anything.